We are joined now by Mailman, Deputy Assistant to the President, Senior Policy Strategist. That's a heck of a title. But what we want to have you on is to talk about the evisceration of left-wing arguments that came out from the Supreme Court today. And I want to start with this. I kind of broke down the legal background here of why these cases were important. But a lot of people out there are going to focus sometimes on the interrelationships between the justices. Amy Coney Barrett, you've read a lot of Supreme Court opinions in law school. I did too. Amy Coney Barrett absolutely destroying Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent in the district court judge ruling case really kind of made me go, wow, you don't see this go this hard a lot. Did it stand out to you too, as this looked like Amy Coney Barrett's just kind of fed up with Ketanji Brown Jackson as a judge, more so than even in just this case?
Yes, this was incredible. I think the legal term is a bench slap, but that is exactly what happened. So, the three liberal justices did dissent and said that they think that universal/nationwide injunctions are perfectly legal. But two of the justices, so Sotomayor and Kagan, basically gave legal reasons, saying, here is why I think judges have this legal authority. And then Justice Jackson wrote a dissent that was completely unhinged from any law and just said that she thinks that it's a good thing that judges basically follow Trump around and tell him what he's doing is wrong, that's like a net good for society. And Amy Coney Barrett, who is, as you know, like if the conservatives in the world have a complaint with her, it's that she's not bold, she's not brave, she kind of goes with the flow a little bit too much. That was not the case today. She wrecked Justice Jackson and said, basically, you are acting unconstitutionally. What you want has no basis in the Constitution. You want a roving, like king judge to decide whatever you think is the law, and that's crazy. And so it was beautiful to see.
Now, also, go ahead, Clay. Oh, I thought Clay was jumping in. May. There are some other decisions that came down as well. What are your take from the White House perspective on, for example, parents being allowed to opt out for religious objection reasons from reading material that has a LGBTQIA++++ agenda?
Yeah, so this was a huge win also. It's not enough, I will say. Schools should not have this crap in them to begin with. The fact that it exists means we have a lot of work to do. But at the bare minimum, if a parent says that they have a religious objection to schools indoctrinating their kids, then schools have to accept that. And the fact that this Maryland school didn't, I'm frankly shocked it wasn't 9-0, because it is that egregious of a violation of religious liberty. And Justice Alito, he's a funny guy, I guess. He copied and pasted some of the pages from this book, and this is not about celebrating that different people have different viewpoints. This was indoctrinating kids to say that trans identification is wonderful and beautiful, and that entire nations, they phrase this as princes and princesses, entire nations should celebrate gay marriage. So that obviously flies in the direct face of all major religions.
This is an incredible series of wins. President Trump has been stacking a lot of series of wins. Are you impressed that the court has been willing to apply the law as consistently as they have and actually give him all these wins and not get involved? Because what's so important about this, and I said it off the top, one day the precedent of presidential power is going to apply to a Democrat president in a significant way. The same thing is going to apply here when it comes to nationwide injunctions. There will be a Democrat president who also benefits from this precedent. These are the right decisions, but I guess maybe I've just gotten so used to the court playing politics and trying to be cutesy that I didn't think they were actually going to be as willing to uphold the law and issue these clear precedents as they have been. Does it surprise you, or are you also skeptical in some way?
I am surprised surprised. Nationwide injunctions is something that the justices have all hinted at that they need to address for such a long time. It's obviously such a big problem. If you ask district court judges, circuit court judges, there's been books written on it, law review articles. It's been such a big problem, and yet there's never been this, they haven't stepped up and stopped it. There are a lot of illegal things that happen all the time that the Supreme Court has just kind of said, whatever, we're not going to deal with it. And I think conservatives, maybe it was during Obamacare, maybe thereafter, where just, if the decision was hard, if it was going to be hard, then you kind of figured they weren't going to do it. But I think actually, Justice Roberts, even though that's what he cares about the most, is like preserving the court's legacy, preserving his legacy, and not beclowning the court. And I think he's concerned that too many conservative rulings would beclown it. I think there is, when a good ruling comes out, my hope would be that all those times we've been disappointed, all those times we hoped that they'd do something that they wouldn't, that it would lend to credibility here. And I think that's what Chief Justice Roberts would hope too. And of course, that's not the case. Justice Roberts might as well go for it every single freaking time because the left is not going to be more appreciative now than otherwise. But, in his mind, I think that's what he hopes, is like that people are going to respect this because of all the times that they've held back in the past.
Speaking of May Mailman from the White House, and tell us about where the big, beautiful bill stands right now. I'm hearing some complaints from a number of different quarters about the Senate parliamentarian getting to weigh in here. And this is something to do with tradition, not actually something that has the force of law or the Constitution, and things are being stripped out by the Senate parliamentarian. What the heck is going on with that? Specifically, some NFA, National Firearms Act provisions that would allow people to buy suppressors like myself who like to go shooting and not blow out their eardrums. What's going on here, May?
Yeah, this is the swampiest of the swamp thing to understand, and it's very frustrating. But it's going to come down to a pretty big political question. So reconciliation is a process that deals with mandatory spending. So it doesn't create, hey, here's $50 billion for this, here's $50 billion for that, but rather various programs, what are different levers that you can change. We're not messing with this, but something like it would be the retirement age. If you change that, you're not actually creating a new program. You're basically amending an existing program for budgetary reasons. So you can only do those sorts of things. And yet that's a pretty big leash because basically there's a lot of levers that you can touch for budgetary reasons. So we had a few things that we really cared about, that if you're going to spend Medicaid money, that you're not going to spend it on transgender surgeries for minors. That there's a fund for companies to help make energy more litigation-proof, basically. A lot of different fixes. And the Senate parliamentarian basically said all of those things are too much in policy and not much in affecting the levers of funding. Now, the Senate parliamentarian who elected this person, who is this person, who cares about this person? Nobody. This is not a real, this is purely, as you said, tradition to take that person's ruling and treat it as the word of God. And yet, Senate Republicans love doing that. Oh, man, they love tradition so much. So I think the real question is, do they uphold tradition? Do they say the Senate parliamentarians' ruling, saying these things are too policy-wise, like you said, on everything from the Second Amendment to transgender surgeries, all the way down to energy policies, all the way down? Or do you say, you know what, no, I know how to read. I know what is budgetary versus policy, and we, the Senate, we're going to make our own independent decision. So that's why it all, at the end of the day, does boil down to a policy choice.
May Mailman, Deputy Assistant to the President, Senior Policy Strategist. Okay, big decision as it came to federal district court judges and whether they can enjoin the president from being able to act. That's a huge win. It also implicates in some way the decision about birthright citizenship, which at some point will likely reach the Supreme Court. Now, I know I'm asking you to read tea leaves here because it is not directly addressable, but I said on the show a little bit earlier that it made me think the Supreme Court may be more open to the president's interpretation of the birthright citizenship amendment analysis than I thought. Is that a crazy take, or would you sign on potentially with that take with the understanding that we're trying to predict something that hasn't yet happened?
So I don't think it's a crazy take. I think on one hand, we knew that the Supreme Court was going to be skittish to address this issue because it is such a big issue. And so that made it a really good vehicle to focus on nationwide injunctions, right? This is something that the Supreme Court is going to move heaven and earth to just focus on that procedural vehicle and not just say, oh, you know what, let's just dive into the substance instead and forget about the process. So this is something that they would love to avoid thinking about for a little bit. Now, it's difficult because even though birthright citizenship is terrible policy and the United States is unique in the globe in offering it, other countries don't say, oh, you were here to visit, a Disney World equivalent, like now your child's a citizen. That's not a thing anywhere else. But at the end of the day, there are some bad court rulings in the past that have interpreted the 14th Amendment to basically give that. Now, past court rulings that are bad are overturned when they need to be, but it's a big decision. It's a weighty decision. So I think you're right, actually. Maybe if they knew for sure they hated this, they would have just said so. But they seem to want to avoid it, and that avoidance, I think, either indicates willingness or it indicates true openness, and they're just trying to bide their time to make such a big ruling.
May, we appreciate it. I got a hot take here. I'm actually pretty pleased with the Supreme Court. I don't know that ever gets said very often. I bet a lot of people in the Trump team are as well. Have a good weekend. Good July 4th. We appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Look, Tunnel to Towers Foundation does a tremendous amount of good. So many different people out there. In fact, when I was just up at Traverse City, one of the women working up front in the radio station there said that Tunnel to Towers had helped her family after they had a major issue. She didn't know necessarily that I was going to be there. She just shared that story. And what I've seen, if I go around to so many different events, is there are so many stories like this all over the country. Stories like U.S. Air Force Sergeant Jesse Clark. His military service came to an end after a chemical exposure caused a large tumor to form in his brain. As a result, he's paralyzed on the left side of his body, legally blind, prone to memory loss, and in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Friends like you help Tunnel to Towers build this hero a new smart home to help him live a more independent life. And now so many more families like the Clarks, well, they could use your help as well. Since Tunnel to Towers founding, after the horrific events of 9/11, we can't ever forget what has been sacrificed. So many of us can have freedom. Together, we can say thank you to America's heroes in a lasting and meaningful way. Please show your support now. Join us in donating $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.